we're starting to see, and the reality is, I think industry's been looking at robotics for a bit. When does it truly become less of co-pilot and more autonomous?
Hello, everyone. I'm your co-host, Erin, and along with Nandan Thakar, we're excited to welcome you to the SureWorx Podcast, where we explore the complexities of building, operating, and optimizing infrastructure assets in the built world. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the SureWorx Podcast. Today, we are really excited to have Thai Nguyen with Hensel Phelps Diverge, and we're really looking forward to this conversation. So, a little bit about Thai. As the leader of Diverge, a Hensel Phelps' innovation entity, Thai Nguyen is pioneering a new approach to sourcing, evaluating, and deploying disruptive solutions for the construction industry. With more than 20 years of experience in the architectural and construction industries, Thai's vision is to leverage technology and collaboration while empowering Hensel Phelps to innovate the industry and build the future. So no small vision there, Thai. Would love to learn about, the beginning of your story. So tell us a little bit more about how you got into the AEC industry in the first place and what really sparked your passion.
Thanks, Erin. And again, thanks for having me. You might regret asking me that question in terms of what my roadmap was to getting to Hensel Phelps. I didn't have a very traditional path to Hensel Phelps nor construction. I think in my youth wanted to be an architect, and so that's what I went to school for. And I think upon graduation, worked for a little bit, and then had my quarter life crisis in my early 20s, and decided that I took one trip out to Colorado, and that really was what I wanted to do, was go and bike, climb, and ski. And so for a decade of my life, I worked for the North Face out of Colorado.
Oh, wow.
And and so that's all I did. Yeah, it's all I did. And I think approaching my 30s, I realized I needed to kind of have a little bit more of a stable path, I think, to, I think as you age a little bit, so you realize that, you can't climb for the rest of your life. And so I'm like, I need to do something. So I got into automotive for a little bit. Also worked in telecom, worked for Quest Telecom, building fiber optic lines from Tukwila down to San Diego. And then 19 years ago, I had an opportunity to start a construction company called Hensel Phelps in Colorado. And so I started in the field as a field engineer on a very small job. And around 2008, found myself in a really good situation where, VDC and BIM started to emerge in our industry. And I was lucky enough to kind of been given that task to go figure it out for Hensel Phelps. And so that kind of set me on a course, leaving the traditional job site and, I think going to corporate and really going across all 9 regions for Hensel Phelps. So 9 regions. We're an employee-owned company and started in 1937. We're based out of Greeley, Colorado. And depending on the regions that really you go to, really diversified portfolio of work. We are the largest aviation contractor. Do a lot of, depending on the regions, do a lot of healthcare, data centers, do a lot of federal and state work as well. And so again, with that diverse portfolio, I was really lucky to get out to the 9 regions and really touch so many owners and so many projects. Within that, learned a ton, right? And so led BDC for over 12 years within Hensel Phelps. And 3 years ago, I was asked given another opportunity to start Diverge, which is a business unit within Hensel Phelps. We're officially a corporate venture arm, kind of focusing on, positioning ourselves the best way we can to not only kind of support our enterprise, but really to partner in industry. I also lead Hensel Phelps on the innovation arm as well. And really behind that is really focusing on people and process. And again, partnering, that's something you're going to hear from me a lot today. I truly believe that. I think with anything we do today, it's really as an industry, we need a partner. And it's the only way we're going to get better.
Amazing. So from the North Face all the way to, I guess, investing and overseeing a bunch of regions and doing tech and innovation for construction. So yeah, that's a really interesting start. So thanks for sharing that.
You bet.
So with some of the initiatives that you're working on today, is there anything that's particularly exciting or something that you'd want to share with us?
No, absolutely. I think since being in this role for the last 2.5 years, I think a lot of work has been in kind of placing the foundation for us to allow us to truly innovate. I think like many groups, you innovate, but it's very a short cycle. It's finding something for that job is 3 years, and then you're on to the next thing. I I think for us and being strategic now, it's really understanding with everything that we're looking at is there's got to be something to why we're piloting solutions or looking at new solutions or solving problems for our job sites, because that's really for us the North Star. If everything I do needs to make sure that job site is again on schedule, the safest job site that could possibly be. And so I think to your question, we have 38 strategies in place today, and I think a lot of it is centered on industry needs. Like we know there's a labor shortage, right? And within that, I don't know if it's going to get better anytime soon. So for us, that is something that we're centering on and trying to do better in that regard. And so within that, we're looking at robotics, for instance. We hired our first robotics engineer 2 years ago, and really we're not going to be creating robotics, but we need to get smarter because you're going to see more robotics on the job site, right?
Yeah. Can we just pause there for a second?
Yeah.
I mean, hiring first robotics engineer for a construction company. So usually when we think about robotics, we think of different industries, right? Probably manufacturing or automotive or typically not construction. So tell me about that shift over, the past few years or so, where we maybe have been kind of playing with the concept of robotics, but now we're at the point where we can actually have a dedicated role on a team, like actually doing this as their job for construction. Like tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think for us, it was, it took a little time to kind of not only plant the seed, but kind of get our arms around to see what that would look like, right? So again, I think just to reiterate, we're not planning to kind of build robotics or, be that group. And not to say that's anything wrong with that, but we're builders and we realize that, Erin, right? And so with us, it's just trying to get smarter because we're starting to see, and the reality is, to your point, I think industry's been looking at robotics for a bit. When does it truly become less of co-pilot and more autonomous? And so for us, we had to kind of, again, get in front of it. we didn't want to react, right? Because when you start to see robotics on a job site, really, how does that affect, really the crew, the project?
Yeah.
What are the safety risks with robotics on the job site? And so we wanted to kind of understand all that. It's going to change the way we do work. It's going to change productivity. It's going to do great things like take the human out of harm's way. So we thought that was just amazing, just to get in front of this, partnering in industry. We've had some great partnerships where we've been able to kind of onboard robotics, get a better understanding of really how they're going to operate the job site, work with these providers to understand the safety implications. Like, for instance, if you got a robotic that's going to drill overhead, what happens if it hits rebar, right? I think all these things we want to make sure we get in front of, understand again, everything that has to do with mitigating our risk when they are on the job sites. And then the reality, like I think we touched earlier, was really, can this offset the human today? Can it do tasks that will alleviate some of the safety risks that we put our people in? And so I think all of that, as we start to kind of ponder it, started to make sense to bring someone in-house that was truly focused on robotics, had a background for robotics, and could lead that initiative for us.
Yes. And everything somehow all comes back to safety as well. So I love that you bring that up, because it is always at the core of any small process that happens on the job site. So top of mind for sure. So I want to ask as well, so just before we started, you mentioned a big travel year, getting some global optics. So two questions on that. So what was your favorite location to visit out of some of those travels? And then any trends you're seeing from, learning about different tech and innovations that are happening in various places around the globe?
No, absolutely. Spending the last few years really kind of getting in touch with really within the U.S., right? I think with as many events as I've seen you at, Erin, and just having these conversations, right, with really our peers out there. The conversations were very consistent, right, in terms of kind of what we're seeing from the optics of the U.S. But I think for me, this last year was going overseas, seeing how different regions are handling things that, for instance, really with decarbonation, right? How are they tackling some of that? We self-perform concrete. So we started to see a lot of groups out there starting to kind of prototype green cement, right? And so what does that mean for us, right? And so going to Europe was really fantastic for that. They've got a really obviously a little in front of us in terms of exploring and piloting these types of solutions. And it was good to kind of see some of that. So going to Copenhagen was pretty amazing, seeing a lot of, mass timber builds, like it was everywhere. Like here in the States, it was very rare, right? Where, again, in Copenhagen, it was everywhere.
We're not so good at the sustainability stuff, which is a shame. But there's a lot to learn from our peers for sure.
It was. And the way they handle the, like trash, like in Copenhagen, they, created this facility that did so well with really, I think, burning trash. And I think the only offset was steam. They did it so well, they're importing trash in from Sweden, right? And so looking at things like that is, yes, Erin, you're right. We can get better, spending time in Asia, seeing how they're really taking on robotics and Japan specifically, and really how they're embracing it and creating automation at their job sites, doing things that I think we're trying to do, but they've definitely got a good start on it, right? And so again, just I think as I traveled and start to see different things in different regions and different countries, it was just giving me better perspective, right? I think we tackle things so often and it's really only to what we know, but I think starting to put yourself in the shoes of, different people that's really kind of out in front with innovation and tackling different things in different regions, it was really neat to see.
100%. I want to ask Nandan, maybe you're chiming in. What trends do you see in your part of the world down under there in Australia?
So a slightly different geography, slightly different work scope here. The general contracting world is very similar. However, the distance and the remoteness of a lot of projects could be a different level of challenge here. A lot of linear projects rather than on-site projects. Slightly ahead of the curve as opposed to US, I would say, in terms of building renewable assets. That said, US is catching up in a hurry. So it's more a proof of concept country for a lot of construction techniques. But then we also have the disadvantage of probably not having the critical mass of population. So, the projects can be a little bit thinned out. So sometimes to bed down the advantage of robotics or AI or any other new process or tool you bring in, you certainly need to try in different conditions over a number of projects and sites. And we may not have that to that degree that North American market may afford. So, but that said, really good place to trial a couple of things and then look at Europe and North America to scale. Thai, I wanted to explore the process that you and the team would use to look at targets for innovation, right? There's so much that could be done even in last few minutes you've covered robotics and sustainability. A little bit of everything. So there's literally construction being an industry of industries. It's not one thing. It's almost an aggregation of lots of industries. What processes and structure you have in place to identify targets and how do you prioritize them for innovation?
Sure, I think what I'm going to convey to you, I wouldn't say it's ideal. I think with every environment, it's a little different. I think just being with Hensel Phelps for 19 years, I knew that within our culture, there was a lot of innovation in terms of our people wanting to improve on their day-to-day, right, in every aspect of what we do. And so for us, really, the last couple of years has been really defining what innovation is. I think in a lot of people's mind, it's technology, it's software, but it's beyond that, right? And so just getting everyone squared away and, what innovation is. It could be a 4-day work week with a 5th day at home, right? It could be taking your accounting department to a job site because they can start to understand why they process thousands of invoices, and so I think for us was, making sure that we align on what innovation was to begin with. And then from that, what we did last year was we created this initiative, and it's not a new concept. It's for us, we called it Think Tank. And the idea was to get all of our regions, our people engaged. And in that way, we created leaders in every region. Within the regions, they built their own teams, right? And so immediately I had a team of over 120 people that were volunteering to want to drive change and innovation. I think for my past life and my career, I realized that change is difficult for a lot of people. And it can be scary, right? And so within that, we had to be very mindful of really how we approach this. And really, I think once you start to go out to industry or your enterprise and ask for innovative ideas, you've got to be ready to honestly react. Because if you don't react, it can ruin everything, right? And so, we put out this initiative last year. We had 173 ideas that came back. And Wonderful. We were like, wow, what do we do with these ideas, right? And so this team, this amazing team for months worked to get those 173 ideas down to 50, down to 40, down to 30. And by the end of last year, we wanted to pick 5 ideas and take it from concept to enterprise. But what we realized that a lot of these ideas, and some of them very similar, you see all these ideas coming from 9 regions. Some of them were just an educational piece where they didn't even know that we had some of these things in place, right? So the easy ones that we checked off. But then we started to realize it's really a workflow that we're targeting, not just any single one idea. And so we picked 5 focus areas, and then ideas built up that workflow for those 5 focus areas. And the target this year in 2024 was to take 5 of those focus areas and go from concept to enterprise. Enterprise is really, I think, taking it so every region has access to it, right? And really can engage and use it. So I would say today in November, we've hit 4 out of 5. The 5th one, which I'm leading, is thank you, is the think tank AI team, where I think with AI, there's no finish line. I mean, it's literally, I think what I've done this year is just educate, right? And really get people comfortable with it. We've got milestones, but I think with AI, this focus group, it's going to take a couple, 3 years to kind of really start to understand how it affects us as an industry, how we can best utilize it. So that's kind of where we're at. How do we prioritize? That's one of the initiatives that we put in place. And that comes from wonderful. Really, I think, our people, right? And so, and obviously there's corporate initiatives that are kind of the core, functions of our company that, it's cybersecurity, it's all these other things. But it was really good, I think, just this last year and experiencing what we did.
So
that's incredible.
Kind of curious, could you expand a little bit more about specifically like the AI think tank, or I think you called it think tank AI?
Yeah.
Is that where you guys started first with like figuring out AI on the market, or what was the strategy there with tackling kind of, this new umbrella of capability?
Yeah, so it's like a multi-prong approach, Erin, right? So we've got corporate, and our CIO is doing a great job leading that effort and really creating the strategy behind really the corporates, or not corporate, but I think just, as Hensel Phelps at enterprise, how we approach it, whether it's data governance, it is really being strategic about really the partners with our ERPs and how they're iterating. But then you had this whole other group that is really, the enterprise. It's the thousands of employees that Hensel Phelps has. I think once Chat GPT, all that hype, everyone's like, wow, and so there's 2 camps too, right, Erin? You've got really the Jetsons, right, where you think everything's going to be amazing, right? And then you've got Terminator, right? Everyone's like so deathly afraid of it. And so what camp are you on, really, first and foremost? But a lot of it, I think, like I said earlier, is just calming people's fears. Like, AI's been around. I think you start to show them examples of really, I think, on your phone. I think how long ago was it that I could, if I had 30 photos of someone, that it would start to isolate that image and they would know who that individual was, right? So that's been happening behind the scenes for some time. But then really, I think the things that are we're excited about are things that are creating automation within our workflows. So one of those focus areas that I spoke to was our pay application process, right? How can we leverage AI to create more autonomous, right, abilities within that process? I think as an office engineer, can you save an hour from their day per day? I mean, that moves the needle, right? And so, that's how we prioritize. That's how we start to understand how we can best leverage AI. Like I said, it's been used for cybersecurity. We started testing it, like creating storyboards, meaning that, for every storyboard we create with marketing, it could take 2 to 3 weeks to convey the idea to marketing, and then they run with it. But we use ChatGPT, we script it with it, we put it into an AI that creates the media, and literally you had a video within 15 minutes that was a minute long that did just a fantastic job of conveying the the intents of what we wanted. And so marketing took that, and now they're able to put in our own assets in there. They tweak it to how they need to. So if we could use AI to get us 70% there, my God, that moves the needle so much. And it's across everything, not just, the examples that I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good to hear.
That's incredible. In terms of the robotics element that you talked about earlier, are you seeing any convergence between robotics being used on site and a collaboration with human workers? So do you have complete segregation of tasks between what robots are doing, or is there a level of collaboration there? What I wanted to really understand, if you could just highlight an example of where you were using robotics, just to make it a little bit real, or even delve into, you having achieved 4 out of 5 objectives. Feel free to go into one of those objectives just so that the example's real for the listeners. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think with robotics, it is approaching it in a way that changes the way we typically contract. I think that's, and so an example I would use on that one is layout robotics, right? Typically the way we do our work is really every trade has that really kind of ownership of, making sure the layout's proper and checking it. And, it's a lot of manual and back and forth. But when we introduced the layout robotic, it really kind of changed the game, right? Meaning that now we have this robotic that was very diligent. It was very accurate. But it also shed risk different ways, right? Meaning that now you've got this robotic doing it. Who owns that risk? And so you got to find the right team. And so what we did this year was we actually purchased a couple of units, and then we started to get them out to the regions and started to do demos, getting people comfortable with it, right? Then finding that right job, right? Because robotics, they're not going to be perfect for every job. You have to find one where there's tremendous throughput, meaning that robotics going to be busy, right? You don't want it to sit there for 3 months because, again, my superintendents are smart. They're doing the number crunching. They're going, well, we're paying this much for this robotic. It's sat there for 3 months, right? And so you have to find the right situation with the right project teams, and they want to be engaged and share the risks and really take on ownership of, now this robotic is laying off a CAD file, but I still need to check that, trust but verify, right? So really I think it's just changing not only the contractual approach, but changing the mindset of the participants that are engaged in this program. But once it's kind of in the job and it's doing what it's doing with good throughput and it makes sense, I don't think it's going away. I mean, we literally bought those units and they're now owned by those job sites that we deployed them on. And so we're having to get more units. And so it is starting to take off tremendously in that regard. So just, I think for us, the lessons learned in the last year is, again, it's not like you can put robotics on every job. It's finding the right one with all those ingredients that's going to set it up for success. And then really making sure that you take your time with staff, because if you don't, and you're just putting this robotic out there, you got to have buy-in. And for us, it's important.
Yeah.
That's I think in one of our previous conversations, we had discussed that the level of implementation goes as far as the least trustful end user.
Yes.
So, yeah, that comes full circle for sure.
Absolutely.
Some of the things that we see with innovation. Fantastic. So I have on my notes here, make sure that I ask about Diverge Connect, because you mentioned it earlier, and I'm really curious to learn a little bit more. So would you be able to share a little bit more about Diverge Connect?
Absolutely. And I think to give credit where credit's due, it's actually from one of our newest employees who's the robotic engineer. His name is Mihir. And so I love, I think, when newer, employees come into the company, because, again, they're challenging the status quo. They're asking me, why are we doing this way? And, often I have to, I respond in a way that that's how we do it. Then I realize, why are we doing it that way? And so as we start to look at this, it kind of fit the overall strategy, Erin, meaning that today, I think with every, I think a lot of people can kind of, a lot of people have the same story, meaning that our tech stacks are bloated. I think for so many of our jobs, for every job, we have so many different solutions that it starts to become kind of unmanageable. It's not sustainable, right? And a lot of it is because I think not knowing across the enterprises of what we have enterprise versus who's piloting what, and so again, that transparency and collaboration, we wanted to create a tool that every employee at Hensel Phelps had access to. So as a field engineer, I've only been with Hensel Phelps for 3 months or 3 weeks. And I've been tasked with, hey, go find a solution that takes progress photos for this job. In the past, really, they would just go on Google and just log in and just ask, right, what's out there for progress photos? And then 55 solutions come up, and then they pick one and they run with it. Today, really, how we're circumventing that is that now you log into Diverge Connect, and literally you can quickly see, you can type in categories like, again, reality capture, and it'll bring up all the solutions as my team, Diverge, has done discoveries with. We put it through a process of looking at cybersecurity, legal. If it is AI, we do an AI review. So we set these solutions up so they're ready to go when we find that right project, right? And Erin, as you're aware, that takes a long time sometimes to go through that process, right? And so we try to do everything up front. So when there is a solution and it has an opportunity for one of our job sites, all those boxes have been checked. The employee just submits for pilot, and then we engage just to make sure expectations are aligned. And then again, we make sure that, we've got the success criteria identified. We can follow that pilot throughout the life of that job. And then within that, everyone else in the enterprise knows that, hey, that project A is using product C, and it's for this, right? And then they have SMEs that they can go talk to. There's discovery videos. And so it really helps not only Hensel Phelps in, again, giving our people the best information possible, but it's also helping startups and solution providers because they don't have to go to all 9 regions and give a demo to 150 project managers and 220 jobs, right? And so it creates a lot of efficiency for both sides. So again, you can see on this portal really what's enterprise, what we're piloting, what Diverge has invested in, what we're, who our partners are. So it's been really good. It's almost a marketplace for our innovation, if that makes sense.
It's incredible. I mean, if I were to just draw 2 observations I have here, Thai. The first part of the discussion, the feeling I have being a CIO in a construction company and then having my own startup scale up now, everything that you're saying there are the challenges that most general contractors and tier 1, tier 2 companies do have, right? Plethora of solutions out there, needing to prove it in proof of concept, the change management, making sure one geography is aware of the solution on the other side. I think one I would really give kudos to you and the team would be just in that culture of setting the right innovation mindset. So I think one thing that I can even feel with this relatively shorter discussion we have had is that it's innovation targets are an emergent thing. So because everyone's involved and the ideas are systematically filtered through, which are actual problems, it gives you guys a much better scope to shortlist them and find the right targets, which is incredible because no one feels as if something's just been parachuted into their site. It's a collaborative thing. So that's the cultural part, and the second part is the consistency that you bring with this marketplace, so that people don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it brings sanity to people on site, to even the startups and the companies pitching, and it gives you a lot of scope for repeating the solution. I've been in a lot of scenarios where a company may have trialed 2 different companies for the same solution, and the west and the east of the region never talk to each other. But that's once the culture part, and innovation being an emergent thing, and it's everyone's responsibility. And then the second thing is when you do find something that seems like a good fit, then how do you make it repeatable, viral, and easy for others to adopt, so that everyone doesn't have to go through the same security and compliance and even pricing contract negotiations. So really, really impressed with the process, I would say.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think for us, it's I think it lessens the frustration from our enterprise, right? I think there's many that go from region to region and they're like, why are we using a different tool, right? And so just standardizing in that way and letting them kind of groundswell these solutions, meaning that, I as Diverge don't tell them what to use. I give them the best information I can. And then really, I think as we start to see now this product is being used on 2 jobs and now 5 jobs and 3 regions and 6 regions, we start to see that groundswell. That's when we start to focus on that solution provider. And then to your point, drive towards more of a standard enterprise solution that creates pricing that's consistent across all 9 regions, right?
Yeah, and the only other point I would mention is that the advantage of having that cultural element where the ideas are supported and emergent is that the same trust and the structure also works in the feedback loop once the solution is deployed.
That's right.
Because the worst thing and not having a solution is a solution you're stuck with and you sort of don't have a voice to make a change. So very, very good. I must ask, with all this sort of sometimes best of breed solutions coming in, how do you guys think about integration and the data layer? Because I think threading that with the base conditions for success for AI, selling AI and the potential as agents is one thing, but then getting productivity out of that also relies on the quality and the structure of your data. So how do you guys think about, you got your reality capture, you got your ERP, you got your asset software, health and safety. How do you sort of join all those sort of 8, 10, 12 different dots databases to get that data ready so that AI can be pretty powerful?
Oh, we have that figured out. I'm just kidding. No, it's you're absolutely right.
I was going to say, tell me like a lot more. We're going to need more time.
No, you're exactly right. I think realizing in construction we create so much data, and that way I feel we've gotten a little better at managing it. And really, I think with AI today, it's like how quickly can we surface this in a way that we're not reacting? We're not doing really financials 30 days later. We're not, like Waze, once it tells you you're in a traffic jam, there's not much you can do, right? And so a lot of what we see in the field, if it's installed not correctly, it's not, you can't really have an option to remove it and redo it because with schedule. And so we want to get in front of everything, right? And to do that, to your point, leveraging AI in the best way and getting more insights, you got to have structured data. And so 2 years ago, we created a data strategy team they're focused solely on connecting the dots, right? Understanding how to standardize our data. But you can't do it all overnight. And so we really started one of our first things that we wanted to prioritize was production engineering. Understanding really, I think, that we self-perform concrete. We have so much data to support it. So let's start to standardize like the way we schedule, right? And the way we call out activities, find some, again, common denominators that we can all align to. That's the hardest thing across all 9 regions because everyone has the autonomy to run the business the way they need to, right? And that's a fantastic thing. But when it comes to data, I think understanding that there's going to be some lift involved is there's no easy button. And so it's been a journey, I think, for us in the last 2 years is really tackling certain aspects of our business, standardizing everything when it comes to, the way our accounting systems are to the way production engineering, the way we track labor at the job sites. Resources across the board, right? That's something that, we're very good at tracking on spreadsheets. And then everyone's got their own spreadsheet. And so within that, just making sure that it's key that I think as we're leveraging on AI, that people can trust that data. And so to trust that data, you've got to standardize that data and you've got to go through a painful process to your point of ensuring that there's fidelity in what you're putting into that AI.
It doesn't help that there are no 2 projects ever that will ever be the
That's
same.
right.
So it's a fresh start almost every single time that you go to build something. So
yes,
construction's a fun puzzle to solve in that way.
It is. And Erin, I think part of this too is everyone is so protective of their data.
Yeah, well, rightfully so, but yeah.
And not all data is the same. So we've kind of gone through that exercise where I say, am I willing to share a BIM if it's not kind of, traceable back to a Hensel Phelps or an owner? Absolutely. I mean, if it's it's the BIM that's showing me it's a chiller. I mean, do I really care? But if it makes the AI smarter that it knows it's a chiller, fantastic, right? And so I think that's part of it too, is you're right. Data governance is very important. We're very protective of our owners' data. And so being mindful of that, but also understanding that there's a lot of data out there that we can actually share, you know? And so I think that's part of it, is understanding really, I think, in the categories, and it really, I think, understanding to that level of detail, because I think, again, not all data is the same. And, you know, there's things that we can share versus things that we cannot, and just having that conversation.
Yeah, I come back again to safety, right? So especially when it comes to figuring out safety trends, that's one thing where you definitely want to wrangle, you know, the data, or get your hands around or get a real picture of what's happening on your site. So
yes,
you can shift from reactionary to preventative. And we have a lot of technologies that are great out there doing it, but especially with the AI conversation coming into play lately, it's just taking that to a new level. And again, it all ties back to, can you manage your data? So
yes, you're absolutely right. I think that's probably one of the most exciting things that I see. Yeah. And to your point, it's not any one thing, but I think as safety, it's, you know, it starts with access control in our job sites, right? Understanding the human that's coming in, and they're operating a piece of equipment, understanding that they have the right certifications and trainings before that equipment even starts, knowing where all the tools are and how they're being used, right? Like if they're using grinders for everything, that's a problem, to your point, Erin. We got to curb that, really, I think that, you know, that misuse of the tool. So all these things that data will tell us, again, if you set it up right and if you're able to create those insights, you're absolutely right.
So we're getting a little bit into our time here. I do want to ask, could you let us know a little bit about the Innovation Center that is launching soon?
Yeah, so I think it's the combination of everything we talked to in this kind of conversation. It's really, I think, going back and centering on our people and process. We wanted a facility that we can truly partner, right? And obviously our focus is our regions and projects as a priority, but I feel even to make that better, we've got to bring owners into this conversation, right? I want to do kind of cross-pollination with different innovation centers. So, you know, I'm talking to a few innovation centers overseas that if they're trying things, we can kind of reciprocate and push things their way. And so really this innovation center is kind of our center of excellence. We want to make sure that, you know, we're supporting our region projects. We have a safe harbor to kind of test robotics. We're going to create an outdoor lab where we're going to bury underground utilities and water and fiber and test every GPR solution today, because there's still ground strikes that's happening on a daily basis. So anything that really affects what we do at our job sites, we want to make sure that we can incubate it. And these ideas are coming from our people, right? And so we want to foster that. But we need partners to do that, right? And so we've got a long list of partners that want to come in and help us within this. I've got competitors that want to partner with us on initiatives as well. And so we're really looking forward to it. Again, it's just really a facility that's going to allow us to kind of push some envelopes with, again, tremendous partners both internally and externally.
Really excited to see what that looks like and what comes out of it. So future is bright.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah. So let's see, at this point, Nandan, Thai, any other last things that you want to share for today's episode?
Look, I think I would say this, the way you are running the whole process is almost a master class in the way it should be done, if I was to be honest. The three pillars of being successful, identifying the right opportunities and making it as everyone's responsibility. Then a rigorous process of POC and making sure everyone's aware of the solutions and where the compliance and data status is. And then the third part, the feedback loop and now completing that trifecta with Innovation Center. If anyone's listening, even though they are your competitors, that is the guidebook. That's how you do it. And the only other question I would ask, just to wrap all that from my end, is just the organizational change management side. So once you do all that, how do you ensure that everyone on the job site is trained to the degree, aware of what solutions you're pushing out there, and perhaps how do you objectively measure productivity? So yeah, change management and productivity, because sometimes you have a feel that this robotics element's adding value, but how do you guys measure it if there was a metric that you use?
No, great question. I think for us, being mindful of change, right? I think at one time we looked at all the changes happening across the enterprise, and there was literally one change a week. The rate of absorption for our people wasn't there. There's just too much. And so, like many groups, we created a PMO, right, that manages change. Within that, very heavily tied to our marketing and communications teams, right? Because anything that touches the enterprise today, we have to submit, and within this, the group then takes a look at that change, see how it affects the enterprise, and then we schedule things out as well, because timing is everything, right? Within that, our marketing communication teams creates these amazing, we're doing podcasts, we're doing, short videos, we're doing lunch and learns, and so I don't think it's any one thing. And then you got to repeat, rinse and repeat, right? Because you think you're going to do one podcast and it's going to solve the world, but it's not. You got to continue this conversation and find those opportunities, whether it's internal events or external events. So that change management is so important. I think so critical in everything that we do, and we're very mindful of that. To your point, ROI, like all these things that we're doing, what is that ROI? And I think today in the phase that we're at, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's really measuring the feedback from our people, right? We do these surveys every couple of years. That's a true barometer. Like, I could do think tanks all day, but is that really doing anything for our people, right? And getting that survey back really tells us that we're heading in the right direction. Our enterprise change, our enterprise, we set these goals every year. We call it our APGs. And it's amazing the foundation that it's built on is it's people, right? It's owners. Our people are owners, innovation, and then data. And within all that, I think our leaders talk a tremendous amount and make sure that with every adjustment, with any of these teams that make it, everyone has that understanding that's leading these initiatives, and that we can all partner and build this kind of, movement in the right direction, because it touches all that, right, in every way.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So I want to share as a closing thought just a couple of quotes that I actually pulled out from the conversation that I thought were just good takeaways. So I have Jetsons versus Terminator. Know which group you're working with. I really liked that comparison there. Another one was be ready to react to innovative ideas, because I think a lot of us just get paralyzed with seeing like, oh, wow, all these things are so great. I have no idea which one to start with. But if you can actually, pick off some value driving things that maybe don't take too much effort, some of that low hanging fruit, you get the ball rolling, get some exciting stuff down the pipeline. And then one of my favorites was take the human out of harm's way. So that one really stuck with me. So really appreciate having you on the podcast, Thai, and sharing your experience and some of the really, truly amazing work that you guys are doing at Hensel Phelps to not just bring technology to construction, but to get, I would say, the industry ready for, next gen, future modes of working. So really
Erin,
cool
thank
to
you.
Care about.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
And I just wanted to say one last thing. I think I want to thank industry, honestly. I think as I started my path 3 years ago, so many people were willing to kind of, spend some time with me and kind of give them their lessons learned and best practices. And this is, I think everyone, including yourself, Erin, I think we've had many conversations in the past and your journey, right? And so just being mindful, I think, of everyone's lessons learned, best practices. Really, I think in everything that we've done today, it's built from really feedback and really the graciousness, I think, of our industry, wanting to make things better and really share these things with me. And so I wanted to, again, just thank industry in general. And I think anyone listening to this podcast, I think you know who you are, and truly appreciate kind of where we're at. And thanks for this opportunity today.
First, innovation isn't just tech. It's about cultural shifts like flexible work weeks and connecting teams on site to drive change. Second, data governance is key. Managing data well ensures AI can both be effective and secure. Third, safe spaces for testing matter. Innovation centers allow teams to experiment and refine tools like robotics before real-world use. And finally, manage the pace of change. Rolling out tech gradually helps teams adapt without burnout. These takeaways offer practical ways to shape the future of construction.
I hope a lot of contractors hear this podcast because the process that you guys are, having been in the industry for 6 years now, Thai, and being in through and through IT person and a mechanical engineer before then, you guys have a really robust process to bring the right ideas and even safety to fail, even because not every innovative idea, every POC is going to work through.
Right.
Especially having brought in the communication team, the PMO, the marketing, people need to understand half a dozen significant departments need to be in this in a correct way for you to drive this, right?
Right.
The CIO and the IT, just in cyber and data, just incredible. Very good. Very good to talk to you. And I hope people take a lot of learnings out of this. But good luck.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Erin.
I would love to visit your innovation center. I'm up there.
Same.
It's on my bucket list to go visit Australia. So
please.
I will definitely reach out. Yeah, I definitely want to.
Yeah.
So
okay, great.
Okay, thank you again. Nice meeting you.
For our listeners, we're excited to bring you to the leading edge of innovation in construction over the course of this show. We will be hosting leaders from the industry as they share their experience and insights. Be shy. Please send us an email at podcast@sureworx.io. That's podcast@sureworx.io to connect with us. Thanks again, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. I'm Erin Khan, and this is the SureWorx Podcast.